The illusion of sanctuary within four walls is a dangerous myth. Believing your home, that supposed heaven, is truly safe, is the first crack in the foundation of your reality. I've seen the shadows that cling to the corners of places meant for comfort, heard the whispers that slither from the spaces between floorboards. This isn't about creaking pipes or a draft under the door. It's about something far older, something that seeps into the very mortar and stone, leaving an indelible stain of unease. Many dismiss these feelings, these prickles of dread that bloom in the quiet hours, but I've witnessed the undeniable truth that lingers in these haunted abodes. I remember a particular vision, a nightmarish tapestry woven from fragmented screams and the chilling scent of decay. It wasn't a ghost I saw, not in the way the films portray them, but a cracked mirror reflecting a fractured past, each shard holding a fragment of suffering. This house, like so many others, held its secrets tightly, its walls breathing with a malevolence that defied simple explanation. The air grew heavy, thick with unspoken grief, and the silence was punctuated by the faintest of sounds, a child's stifled cry, a woman's pleading whisper, sounds that clawed at the edges of sanity. This is not a tale for the faint of heart, nor for those who seek solace in the mundane. These are histories etched in fear, stories that refuse to remain buried beneath the veneer of ordinary life. They are the echoes of lives interrupted, of energies that linger, bound to the places where their final moments played out. The transcript before me, a mere skeleton of events, ignites a familiar fire within my soul, a call to delve deeper into the darkness and uncover the raw emotional core of these disturbing occurrences. It beckons me to breathe life into the chilling narratives, to make the viewer feel the cold, to hear the spectral murmurs. The house, a silent witness, often becomes the repository of the most intense human emotions, both good and ill. When tragedy strikes, when lives are extinguished under the weight of despair or violence, a psychic residue remains, clinging to the very fabric of the dwelling. It's as if the walls themselves absorb the anguish, the fear, the final desperate breaths. This residual energy doesn't simply dissipate, it festers, growing in the darkness, waiting for a new consciousness to perceive its torment. It's a haunting, yes, but one far more insidious than a fleeting apparition. Consider the story of a family who moved into a seemingly idyllic home, only to find their lives slowly unraveling. The transcript speaks of unsettling noises, of objects moving on their own, of a pervasive sense of being watched. But what lies beneath these surface manifestations? It's the weight of a past trauma, an unseen burden that the house itself carries. The children, often more sensitive to these energies, become the primary conduits, their innocent minds unable to shield themselves from the onslaught of spectral influence. The transcript mentions a specific incident involving a child's room, where a rocking chair moved on its own. But let's peel back the layers. Imagine a nursery, once filled with laughter, now steeped in an oppressive silence. The rocking chair, a symbol of comfort and security, becomes an instrument of terror, its rhythmic creaking a metronome for a slow descent into madness. This is not merely a poltergeist, it is the manifestation of a profound, lingering sorrow, an invisible hand rocking the cradle of despair, forever replaying a scene of unimaginable loss. The energy within a haunted space is not static, it ebbs and flows, influenced by the very people who inhabit it. When fear is amplified, the malevolent forces are strengthened, feeding on the panic like crows devouring carrion. The more the inhabitants react with terror, the more potent the haunting becomes, creating a vicious cycle. It's a dance with the abyss, a slow surrender to an encroaching darkness that feeds on every scream, every tear shed within its haunted confines. The stories I've been shown, the visions that sear themselves into my mind, speak of a pervasive dread that settles upon a household like a shroud. It starts subtly, a feeling of unease, a sense that something is not quite right. Then, it escalates. Objects appear in different places, doors creak open in the dead of night, and the chilling feeling of being observed becomes a constant companion. This isn't random, it's a deliberate, insidious encroachment, a spectral presence testing the boundaries of its dominion. The transcript hints at a family driven to the brink of madness. Let us explore the why. Imagine the unseen forces at play, whispers that insinuate themselves into the minds of the inhabitants, planting seeds of doubt and paranoia. The atmosphere becomes toxic, each breath heavy with unspoken anxieties. The once familiar sounds of the house, the settling of wood, the hum of the refrigerator, become distorted, twisted into sinister omens. It is a psychological warfare waged by an unseen enemy, designed to erode sanity piece by piece. The narrative speaks of a specific room, perhaps a basement or an attic, where the activity was most concentrated. These are often the forgotten spaces, the dark corners where secrets are buried, both literal and metaphorical. In these zones, the veil between worlds thins, and the echoes of the past resonate most powerfully. The air itself feels charged, heavy with the unspoken narratives of those who suffered there, their pain imprinted upon the very structure. And so we turn to the first tale, a narrative whispered from the shadows of a house where a family's dreams curdled into nightmares. The transcript outlines events, but I will illuminate the emotional landscape, the palpable terror that permeated their lives. It began with subtle disturbances, a misplaced object, a fleeting shadow, whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. These were not mere coincidences. They were the overtures to a symphony of dread, the initial probes of an unseen entity seeking to assert its presence. The family, initially dismissive, found their skepticism eroding with each passing day. The disturbances grew bolder, the whispers more insistent, no longer confined to the periphery of their awareness, but pressing in, demanding attention. A child's toy would move, a door would slam shut with no earthly explanation, and a cold presence would sweep through rooms, leaving behind a lingering chill that defied the ambient temperature. This was the house beginning to breathe with a life of its own, a life steeped in an ancient, malevolent energy. The transcript mentions the feeling of being constantly watched. This is the hallmark of a truly insidious haunting. It's not the sudden jump scare, but the slow, creeping dread that settles in your bones, the unshakable certainty that you are never truly alone. Imagine every moment, every private thought, every vulnerable act observed by unseen eyes. This relentless scrutiny erodes the sense of self, chipping away at sanity until the individual feels like a mere puppet in a play they never auditioned for, controlled by forces beyond their comprehension. One particular anecdote from the transcript speaks of a specific object, perhaps a mirror or a piece of furniture, that seemed to be the focal point of the activity. These objects become conduits, imbued with the energy of past events or the entity itself. They are like dark anchors, holding the spectral presence tethered to the physical realm, allowing it to manipulate its surroundings and torment its new inhabitants. The object itself becomes a symbol of the ongoing haunting, a tangible reminder of the unseen forces at play. The emotional weight of such an experience is crushing. It's the constant state of hypervigilance, the inability to find peace even in the supposed safety of one's own home. Sleep becomes a luxury, interrupted by nightmares and phantom sounds. The bonds of family are strained under the pressure, suspicion and fear breeding within the very hearts that should be a source of comfort. This is not simply a story about a haunted house. It is a testament to the devastating psychological toll such an ordeal can inflict, leaving behind only broken spirits and shattered lives. Now, imagine this, The transcript details a specific event, a moment of profound terror that solidified the family's belief in the paranormal. Let's amplify that. Picture the silence of the night, broken only by the frantic thumping of their own hearts. The air grows impossibly cold, a glacial breath that steals the warmth from their very souls. Then it happens. Not a sound, not a visual manifestation, but a feeling, a tangible pressure, a spectral hand pressing down, an unseen force attempting to physically manifest its dominion. It is in these moments that the veil truly tears. The house, a silent predator, feeds on fear. The more the inhabitants scream, the more they weep, the more they cower, the stronger the entity becomes. It's a symbiotic relationship, albeit a horrific one. The transcript might simply state that the family fled, but what of the internal war they waged? The desperation to reclaim their peace, their sanity, their very homes, only to be met by an unyielding, malevolent force that seemed to relish their suffering. The house remembered. It held on to the echoes of its past, the traumas etched into its very foundation like dried blood on ancient stone. The new inhabitants, unknowingly, became actors in a play whose script had been written centuries ago, their own fear and despair adding new verses to the unfolding tragedy. The transcript offers a glimpse, but the true horror lies in the imprint left behind, the psychic scars that pulsed with unseen energy. This next account, pulled from the tattered pages of a forgotten diary, speaks of a house where the darkness was not merely a presence, but a pervasive, suffocating entity. The transcript provides the skeletal facts, but the visions are of the emotional residue, the lingering scent of fear that clung to every surface. Imagine the air thick with an unspoken dread, the shadows in the corners of your vision seeming to coalesce, to watch. It's a silent invasion, a slow siege on the mind, where reality itself begins to fray at the edges. The house itself seemed to conspire against its occupants. Doors would inexplicably lock from the inside. Windows would rattle violently, as if an unseen hand was clawing at the glass, and the temperature would plummet without warning, leaving a chilling frost on the air. These were not random occurrences. They were calculated displays of power, designed to instill fear and assert dominance. The transcript mentions the family's growing desperation, but it cannot capture the sheer paralyzing terror that grips you when you realize your home is no longer a sanctuary but a prison. Consider the impact on the children in this narrative. Their innocence makes them more susceptible to the subtle shifts in atmosphere, the spectral whispers that adults might rationalize away. They become the barometers of the house's mood, their own fears amplifying the negative energy. The transcript may simply note their increased anxiety, but I see the wide-eyed terror, the refusal to sleep alone, the drawings filled with shadowy figures and weeping eyes, a silent scream rendered in crayon. The core of these hauntings often lies in unresolved trauma, a violent end, a deep betrayal that leaves an energetic scar on the location. The house becomes a vessel for this lingering pain, a stage where the past is perpetually replayed. The transcript gives us the plot points, but the emotional weight comes from understanding that these are not just stories. They are echoes of real suffering, imprints of anguish that continue to resonate, seeking expression through fear. The phenomenon described in the transcript isn't just about bumps in the night, it's about a psychic transference. The residual energy of past events seeps into the present, manifesting in ways that disturb and terrify. Imagine touching an old, forgotten relic and feeling the phantom sensations of its previous owner, the warmth of their hand, the emotions they felt. A house is a far more potent relic, a vessel that has absorbed decades, even centuries of human experience, both ecstatic and extremely terrible. This particular story, as outlined in the transcript, centers on a family that experienced escalating poltergeist activity. But let us look beyond the moving objects. and slamming doors. Picture the invisible force, a tempest of raw, negative emotion, swirling within the confines of their home. It's a manifestation of something deeply disturbed, something that cannot find peace. The family's fear acts as a catalyst, feeding this chaotic energy and giving it the power to interact with the physical world. The chilling realization that dawns upon the inhabitants is that their home has become a trap. The once familiar layout, the comforting routines, all are twisted into instruments of fear. The walls seem to close in, the silence becomes deafening, and every creak of the floorboards is a harbinger of impending dread. The transcript offers a summary, but the true horror is the slow erosion of sanity, the feeling of being utterly powerless against an unseen, relentless force. The transcript mentions a specific room, a nursery perhaps, where the activity was most pronounced. These spaces, intended for innocence and new beginnings, can become focal points for the darkest energies. Imagine the spectral presence drawn to the vulnerability, the untainted energy of a child, seeking to imprint its own misery upon it. The rocking chair that moves on its own, the toys that are found scattered. These are not mere pranks of the paranormal. They are attempts to communicate, to instill fear, to make their presence undeniably known. The emotional toll is immeasurable. Sleep is a distant memory, replaced by nights of terrified vigil. The constant state of alert wears down the nerves, leading to irritability, paranoia, and ultimately, a deep psychological scar. The family in this account was forced to confront a reality far more terrifying than any nightmare. A reality where the very concept of safety within one's own home was shattered, leaving them adrift in a sea of unending dread. This next narrative, sketched out in the transcript, describes a house where the haunting was so profound that it drove its inhabitants to abandon their lives. But what is the unseen hand that compels such drastic measures? It's the weight of accumulated dread, the constant assault on the senses and the spirit. Imagine living in a state of perpetual unease, where the very air you breathe feels tainted, heavy with the sorrow and fear of those who came before. The house, in essence, becomes a living entity, its walls imbued with the psychic residue of past tragedies. The transcript may detail the outward manifestations, apparitions, disembodied voices, but the true horror lies in the internal experience. It's the feeling of being suffocated by an unseen force, the chilling awareness that you are no longer the master of your own domain, but a prisoner in a spectral cage. The transcript points to specific events, but let us delve into the emotional consequence. Imagine the children's drawings, once filled with sunshine and smiles, now depicting shadowy figures with gaping mouths and eyes filled with terror. This is the visual manifestation of their fear, a silent scream echoing the unseen horrors they endure. These children are bearing witness to something profound and disturbing, their young minds struggling to process the malevolence that has infiltrated their sanctuary. The concept of a residual haunting is often discussed, but let's translate that into visceral experience. It's like walking through a film loop of a past tragedy, the emotions of that moment imprinted onto the environment. The transcript provides the scenes, but the vision is of the emotional residue, the palpable sense of despair and terror that continues to play out, drawing new victims into its unending cycle. This isn't just a story. It's a warning etched in the very fabric of reality. Consider the psychological impact of being perpetually watched. It's an invasion of privacy that transcends the physical realm. Every moment, every private thought, every vulnerable act is under constant, unseen scrutiny. This relentless observation erodes the sense of self, chipping away at sanity until the individual feels like a mere pawn in a cosmic, terrifying game. The transcript may simply state that the family felt uneasy, but I see the terror in their eyes, the paranoia that festers in the absence of true solitude. This next tale, gleaned from the transcript, speaks of a house where the shadows seem to have a life of their own. But these are not ordinary shadows. They are the manifestations of a deep, abiding darkness, a malevolent presence that feeds on fear and despair. Imagine the corners of your vision constantly flickering, the periphery of your sight alive with movement that vanishes the moment you turn to look. It's a psychological game, played by an unseen entity, designed to fray your nerves and sow seeds of doubt. The house itself became an antagonist. Doors would slam shut with no earthly force to propel them. Objects would be moved from their places in the dead of night, and an unnatural cold would permeate certain rooms, a chill that went deeper than the bone. These events, meticulously catalogued in the transcript, were not random acts of poltergeist activity. They were deliberate manifestations, calculated to instill terror and assert the entity's dominion over its inhabitants. The transcript mentions the family's growing desperation, but picture the internal struggle, the constant state of hypervigilance, the inability to find peace even in sleep, the spectral whispers that insinuate themselves into their thoughts, twisting rational concerns into full-blown paranoia. This is a form of psychological warfare, waged by an entity that thrives on the breakdown of the human spirit. The house becomes a prison, and the inhabitants are its unwilling inmates, their sanity slowly being eroded. The children, often more sensitive to these energies, became focal points. Their nightmares, their fear of the dark, their claims of seeing figures in their rooms. These were not childish fantasies. They were direct responses to the spectral presence that was actively seeking to manifest. The transcript might gloss over these details, but the vision is clear. Innocent minds being subjected to profound terror, their pleas for help echoing unheard in the suffocating darkness. The essence of these hauntings lies in the unresolved energy of past events, a trauma so profound that it imprints itself onto the very structure of the dwelling. The house becomes a repository of that pain, a spectral echo chamber where the past is perpetually replayed. The transcript offers a narrative, but the vision is of that emotional residue, a tangible force that continues to exert its influence, seeking to draw new souls into its torment. This next account, pulled from the transcript, details a house where the activity was so intense that it drove the occupants to flee. But what unseen force compels such a radical abandonment? It is the cumulative weight of dread, the constant psychological assault that erodes the will to stay. Imagine living in a state of perpetual unease, where the very air you breathe feels charged with a negative, oppressive energy, the silent testament to past suffering. The house, in this context, transcends mere bricks and mortar. It becomes a living, breathing entity, saturated with residual energy. The transcript may list the occurrences, apparitions, disembodied voices, but the true horror lies in the feeling of being submerged in an ocean of despair. It is the chilling awareness that you are no longer in control, that your home has become a stage for a spectral drama you never auditioned for. The transcript highlights specific events, but let us expand upon their emotional resonance. Imagine the family dog, usually a beacon of comfort, cowering in a corner, whimpering at unseen threats. Animals often possess a heightened sensitivity to these energies, their primal instincts recoiling from the spectral presence. Their fear amplifies the palpable tension within the home, a silent validation of the inhabitants' own growing terror. The core of such hauntings, the transcript hints, is often a tragic event, a violent end, or a deep betrayal that leaves an indelible psychic scar. This energy doesn't dissipate. It lingers, manifesting through the very fabric of the dwelling. The house becomes a spectral echo chamber, where the pain and fear of past occupants are perpetually replayed, seeking new conduits for their expression. This isn't mere folklore, it's a warning, whispered from beyond the veil. This next story, as presented in the transcript, speaks of a house where the activity was so disturbing that it fundamentally altered the lives of its inhabitants. But what lies beneath the surface of these unsettling occurrences? It is the profound emotional residue left by past traumas, an energetic imprint that permeates the very structure of the dwelling. Imagine the air itself thickening, becoming heavy with the unspoken grief and lingering fear of those who suffered within those walls. The house, in essence, becomes a passive recipient of these energies, a vessel that absorbs and amplifies them. The transcript might detail physical manifestations, objects moving, unexplained noises, but the true horror is the psychological impact. It's the creeping dread, the pervasive sense of being watched, the feeling that your sanctuary has been infiltrated by something ancient and malevolent. The walls themselves seem to breathe with a sorrow that is not your own. Consider the transcript's mention of a specific room or area that seemed to be the epicenter of the activity. These are often the places where the veil between worlds is thinnest, where the energy of past events is most concentrated. Imagine stepping into that space and feeling an immediate drop in temperature, a suffocating stillness, a palpable sense of presence that prickles the skin. It's as if you've stepped directly into the echoes of a forgotten tragedy. The emotional weight of such an experience is crushing. It's the erosion of trust in one's own senses, the growing paranoia that infects every interaction. Sleep becomes a battleground, haunted by nightmares that bleed into waking hours. The family unit, meant to be a source of strength, becomes strained under the relentless pressure, each member grappling with their own escalating fear and exhaustion. This isn't just a tale of a haunted house. It's a study in the slow disintegration of the human spirit. The transcript points to specific events, but the underlying theme is the house's ability to absorb and reflect the emotional states of its inhabitants. When fear is introduced, the malevolent energies are amplified, feeding on the panic like vultures circling their prey. The house becomes a mirror, not of physical appearance, but of inner turmoil, reflecting and magnifying the deepest anxieties of those within. It is a dangerous dance with the abyss, where every scream fuels the unseen fire. This final narrative, drawn from the transcript, speaks of a house that was ultimately abandoned, its dark secrets too heavy to bear. But the true horror lies not just in the abandonment, but in the unseen forces that drove them away. It is the accumulation of dread, the persistent whispers that insinuate themselves into the mind, the chilling certainty that you are not alone, even in the deepest solitude. Imagine the walls themselves exhaling a cold, spectral breath, their silence a deafening testament to past agonies. The transcript provides the skeletal structure of events, but the vision is of the raw, emotional residue that permeated the dwelling. It's the feeling of being trapped in a cycle of despair, where the sorrows of the past refuse to remain buried. The house becomes a manifestation of that lingering pain, its very atmosphere charged with an oppressive energy that seeps into the souls of its inhabitants, leaving them hollowed and afraid. Consider the moments of intense fear described, where the inhabitants felt a physical presence, an unseen force pressing down upon them. This is not merely a psychological manifestation. It is the entity attempting to assert its dominion, to make its spectral presence undeniably known. The transcript may describe it as a heavy feeling, but the vision is of an invisible hand crushing the air from your lungs, a visceral reminder of your helplessness. The ultimate lesson from these accounts is that our homes, those supposed sanctuaries, can become prisons. When a dwelling becomes saturated with negative energy, with the echoes of tragedy and despair, it ceases to be a place of comfort and becomes a conduit for something far more sinister. The transcript has laid bare the events, but the chilling truth is that these houses remember, and their memories are painted in strokes of pure terror. Do you feel this dark message was meant for you? Have these visions stirred something within your soul? a recognition of the shadows that can lurk even in the most familiar places. Share your thoughts, your own chilling experiences, or simply the unease these stories have evoked. The abyss listens, and every confession feeds the whispers that guide us through the darkness. Every soul that joins this community, drawn by the allure of the unknown, feeds the voice that whispers from the darkness. It strengthens the connection, allowing us to peer deeper into the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil. If you feel the pull of these untold stories, if the call of the spectral resonates within you, then subscribe. Let your presence be known, and together, we will unravel the secrets that slumber in the shadows. Your light, however small, illuminates the path for others seeking the truth. And to those who have felt the chill, who have seen the cracks in their own perceived reality, I urge you to acknowledge the lingering unease. Do not dismiss the prickles of dread, the whispers on the edge of hearing. They are echoes from beyond, fragments of a truth that is both terrifying and compelling. The more we acknowledge these phenomena, the more we invite understanding. If these narratives have resonated with you, if they have sent a shiver down your spine, then honor that feeling. A simple like is an acknowledgement of the unseen forces at play. The echoes linger, the shadows lengthen, and the whispers grow, until our paths cross again in the spectral currents. Tread carefully through the spaces that hold their secrets. Remember, the greatest mysteries are often found not in the stars, but in the very walls that surround us. May your nights be less disturbed.